Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Puri's Journey. Today we're going to talk about what it's like to write a Christian novel, a Christian graphic novel, just create content as a Christian, but talking about sin. Because I have been someone who has been studying a lot about, or even just checking out different Christian content. And I'm seeing a difference. Those who are like new to the faith, right? Those who are, or not necessarily new, but those who are like young, like Gen Z and even almost millennials, I'm seeing a difference in between how Christian narrative is being told and shown through all kinds of media versus something like a pure flex. Thanks, no offense. I like me some pure flex, don't get me wrong. The concept that I have this question, and I think this can be a discussion that people can talk about in the comment section for sure, is as a Christian artist, are we supposed to keep our stuff rated G for everyone? Is it supposed to be PG? Is the content that we are making for Christians or for other Christians or for those who are non-believers who are trying to know about Christ, should it be PG? Now, one example I can think of is the Lafe testimonies. Hope I said that right. But they talk, a lot of the people who are on the YouTube channel, they talk about their testimony. I'll link it, by the way. Like, let's say we took one of those testimonies and we put it into a movie. Do we make it PG because we're Christian? I mean, I read the Bible. There was some stuff in there I wouldn't consider PG. Did we not read what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah when Lot's daughter? Like, what about the one about Samuel and his, not Samuel, I think it was David. Yeah, I think it was David and his nephews or nieces, something, and about the whole cousin, like the cousin narrative. I don't know. I may be butchering wrong, but I'll put it in the video that Bible verse. So there's definitely some content where I'm like, was that PG? I mean, parental guidance needed, you know what I mean? Now, and there's so many other, I have read so many stories in the Bible where I wouldn't consider it. I mean, even the death of Christ wasn't a G. It wasn't. We seen the Passion of Christ. Isn't that a rated R? I remember seeing Passion of Christ and that not being the most. I mean, just the way Jesus died. He didn't just die a very light death. It was a very gruesome. I don't know if gruesome is the word, but it was very. I mean, it goes into details. I mean, it was humility. It was all this. I mean, he was the crowns, his adorns, all that. It's like, it's not like how Kendrick Lamar would put it as like this little aesthetic. But it makes me think, though, as an artist, as an author, as a Christian artist, especially as I work on a web novel. For context, I am the author of thearchivesofbff.com. I am the author of the Archives of BFF, and so I do the chapter books for it. I do the illustrations as well as the sole work with the graphic novels. So, and actually, matter of fact, let's talk about that. The graphic novels. Amen. So I have one graphic novel and it took me a second to get it out. It's not the most fanciest, but I got it out. Check out last video where I'm talking about where I got it out despite not being the greatest artist or the greatest, even have a full-blown knowledge on how to make a manga or a graphic novel. I still made it, so there's that. The thing that I learned though was when I was making the graphic novel, one thing that I remember was, this one is actually about the first book. Oh, it's all the way over there. I don't want to reach it. The graphic novel is actually the B plot, I guess, or the B side of the first chapter of my first book. And it's about this character named Dice from his perspective. He's the one with the big old fro. And it's about him getting his encounter with Christ. Now, it's very interesting because my book is about testimonies, about people coming to Christ, and they're all in a music group, So one thing I found very interesting about Dice's story is that Dice is actually the first person in the group who really gets that encounter with Christ after being lukewarm for years. I mean, he's the definition of lukewarm. Like, I mean, all of them are lukewarm. I mean, they all started off knowing who God was. They all went to church. They still do go to church. They just don't apply anything they learned from church, you know? One thing that I truly thought was so interesting about Dice's character was that despite being the first person to come to Christ, and you see it in the graphic novel, he was known as an addict. Okay, I'll say that. He was addicted to, I don't want to get demonetized, but he was addicted to a couple of things, and it said in the novel. And he also had a drug problem. He also had a watching videos problem. I don't want to say the word, but yeah. I don't really go into that one because it's a little we're working on it. It's a little hard to explain it. That's why I'm trying to get one of these Degrassi books. One of these. I'm trying to get the other one because it talks about it. I need to know how to like show that in graphic novel. Anyways, one thing that I am learning though was he was the first person in the group to really come to Christ, and it's very interesting that it's him in the first chapter book where he's the one who really is kind of hinting people to like take Christ seriously. And it's almost like the story of Paul, Saul to Paul. You know how Paul, Saul was just, he was a lot. Again, I should do a little bit of research. I just prayed, y'all, and then I was like, Lord, just speak through me. But I'm a little hesitant on some of these words. Okay, we're good. Okay, I was right. Okay, so before Saul became Paul, he was someone who was literally killing Christians and so for him to be going around and be the one responsible for writing a lot of the books in the New Testament, I mean, it's like the least likely person came to Christ, and that's how the graphic novel is. But it's not clean, because it's like I show that one of the biggest problems that I feel like I see, especially from someone from the outside looking into the story, and that's how I want everyone to treat all of my stories, is like looking at someone who is sinning and understanding that is a sin. Let's say I was in a room and there was a non-believer in the room and we both watched the same Netflix show. I would be able to discern the sins that are happening versus the non-believer would be like, oh, that's normal. And so I feel like what I'm trying to say is that with my graphic novel, you can tell that they are all very, very lukewarm. That some of the characters deal with a lot of pride, some of them deal with a lot of lust, some of them deal with a lot of waves of emotion. Some of them gossip, others are high of themselves, some of them are indulging in different types of gluttony or some form of addiction. And I think one thing that I can also say from the perspective of my books is that everyone in the group has their own secrets, yet a lot of people know each other's secrets, yet just nothing about it. Some of them are actually enablers. That's like another thing that's also a sin, like causing someone to stumble and sin. That's a whole nother discussion. And what I'm trying to say is that with my books, I always kind of struggle this with the Lord. Like, there's been so many times where I was like, God, should I go back and refix the chapter book? Because I believe there is one cuss word, and I don't cuss, but I think there's one cuss word somewhere in there. But that was like a genuine reaction because I totally forgot about that storyline. Because, by the way, each archive or each chapter is kind of like a different storyline, so they're like mini chapters. Again, think of like the story of Degrassi. I'm not copying Degrassi, I just find it, that's kind of where I took some inspiration from. There was a particular scene that happened somewhere in the middle of the book. I don't want to go too much detail, but one of the characters was super mad, and obviously you're mad, you're feeling all these, it's normal just to experience emotion, just how you handle it, and this character didn't handle it well, and he said some words. So I'd be sitting there thinking like, God, I don't know, should I be doing this, should I be doing that? And every single time it's like, no, just leave it, because that's just, for some people need to hear it. And so if you're someone who creates content, or if you're a Christian and you are called to make content for people who are out there, or even if you're a Christian or a non-Christian, but you're looking for you're a Christian, or you're trying to become Christian, just understand that, it's cool, it's great to watch a pure flicks kind of show. I understand people love The Chosen. I've never really seen The Chosen. I think I saw an episode or two. There's plenty of things. There's even The Forge. That's like another thing. No, sorry. Ooh, y'all ain't good. Okay, I saw The Forge on Netflix. Yeah, I couldn't. If I took a spin on The Forge, I would have had that boy. And I'm not saying I would have had him, but I think it could have went so much deeper. They kept it clean, which is fine. But how much more impactful would it been if the person, the son, how much more impactful would The Forge be if he was struggling with like weed or something, like a weed addiction or something, or he was struggling with some kind of thing, like I don't know, like just something that would have kind of showed him really overcoming. Because I think some people need to understand that when you're telling Christian narrative, is that everyone had a starting place in their walk, where they were in bondage of something or in lack of something, and how through Christ they overcame it. And I don't know, I'm trying to think of like some characters in the Bible, or some people in the Bible. I don't want to say characters, but there's so many people in the Bible where they dealt with something and they overcame it. And so it's like, why not go into more details? Because it's like, I don't know. I mean, you can't. I do like me a clean Christian novel, but there's so many movies and shows that I've been watching lately that could have easily had Christian things at the end, or not at the end, but led to it. Like, someone could have easily got saved at the end of this episode. Just point blank, period. Yeah, so Euphoria. I've never seen Euphoria, but like, Euphoria is a good example. I just know that, like, from my understanding, everyone in that show was struggling. But what happened? Everyone came to Christ. Now, this is another thing I want to talk about. When you're creating content and you're talking about this thing, like I'm talking about sin, obviously, and why you shouldn't sin, obviously, it don't mean you glorify it. So let's say Euphoria, for example. So Euphoria, I watched the first episode and it's very TVMA. Does that mean we should make it TVMA for your stuff? No, but I don't think you should necessarily. But you can still talk or show that someone's struggling with something, but don't have to like show it. Like, one thing that I write about, and it's me being honest, because what it is, some of the characters, not all the characters, like there's this. Let's say there's like a love triangle. There you go. We'll talk about it. There's the love triangle between Simon, Sage, and Lily, and there's two other people. We'll get into it later. So yeah, it's a trapezoid. Or Pentagon, sure, that might be more appropriate. And one thing that I know about that was that yes, there's this giant love triangle, love pentagon, and there's definitely a lot of sin that wraps around it. Not to even mention Theo and his catfishing addiction. This is the reason we're talking about my book series. This is one of the characters I'm just talking about. Like, even him and his catfishing thing, it's pretty known that in the group that a lot of the guys, they're admitting through the archives that they used to pay a certain member within the music group that they're all in, that they would pay this person to, come through in the middle of the night kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So I don't show it. I'm not gonna write just straight up what bad. But I'm like, I've got to be honest, because there's people out there who do struggle with lust. There's people out there who do struggle with fornication. There's people out there. And so it's like, the thing is like, that's something that you gotta keep in mind about. And one of the other things is like pride, really big pride, a lot of abuse of power, abuse of authority. That's like another thing that people tend to really not understand. So when you're writing Christian content, what I'm trying to say though is that don't hold back on stories, but don't glorify it. And I mean, in the comment section, go in all out at what you think on it. But I think because us Christians are limiting ourselves to telling really, really good, deep stories. There's stuff like Narnia. Even Narnia is something that, yes, it's clean, but it still has deeper undertone meanings in it. Especially, like, it doesn't have to be like a Christian romance love story where they met at a bakery and then it's like the most like Hallmark. Like, not every single Christian content that is produced has to be Hallmark stuff, because it's fine, but just how much more people could you reach? I'm not saying I don't want to start no revolution saying like, hey, do this, but I am saying that if you're called to write a story and you feel like you want to talk about deeper stories and stuff, then talk about it, because it's a testimony. Whose testimony have you heard that is rated G for everyone? Like, something could have happened to a kid when they were younger, when they were a child. If they were to make that into, look at the Bobby DeBarge movie. That and stuff. Let's say that was about a testimony about them all coming to Christ. If you watch that movie, it's a pretty big part of their testimony. Why leave it out? And that's one thing that the devil likes to do. He tries to make it to shorten the testimony, shorten your journey. The thing that the enemy kept you silent of, you kept it silent for so long that he doesn't want you to tell the full thing. Like, no sugarcoating. Don't sugarcoat the testimony. So if you're not sugarcoating the testimony, then don't sugarcoat the story. If the story is about a testimony, about someone overcoming a test to make a testimony, then do not censor it. Like, just don't censor it. But don't be going all out. You don't need to show the details. I don't need that much details on. I don't think anyone needs that much detail on certain situations, but that doesn't mean you can't talk about it. That doesn't mean you can't show a PG version of that thing. Just keep the blood to a minimum. Maybe keep the crime to a minimum. Maybe not a minimum, but it doesn't have to be like you could turn a traditional like 15-minute scene to a 5-minute scene, but still include the conversation about it. Let's say like something happened in the room, right? Just shut the door. You don't have to go into much detail, but that don't mean leave it out. I mean, it's up to y'all. But yeah, that's just pretty much what I want to say though for this video. Be due diligent. But as an author myself who works on different stories, writes different, and writing a testimonial book about collective of testimonies, I don't know. Comment down below and tell me, or tell everyone, ask everyone, what do you think? What do you think on this situation? Do you think Christian films, Christian content, as a Christian creator, do you feel obligated to create stories that are very G-rated, very PG? Do you feel limited to just that? Let me say that. Do you feel limited to that, or do you feel like you should be able to create more mature content? Or not even mature content, just mature topics. Talk about more mature topics. Talk about producing, let's say, a testimony that is a very big testimony. It may be about homelessness. It may be about poverty. It may be about, I don't know, war, or even something, or bullying. That's another thing. Do you keep it to a minimum? Do you keep it to Hallmark? Or is it acceptable, or do you think it's appropriate to produce more mature content? Now, if you're going to do mature content, do it right, pray about it, obviously, and don't just sit there and make this, because there is people in Hollywood who make very mature Christian content, but God was not in that production at all. It ends up being just a horror movie, or it just ends up being this blasphemy, or really making God look like the bad person, which that's nothing but a lie from the devil. So keep that in mind. But you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe. Donate. We're accepting donations on the Archives of BFF, because all my books are free to read, so check it out. And if you want to do monthly, cool. If you want to do just a one-time, cool. If you want to just donate 50 cents, cool. I'll take it, just to help keep the bills paid, keep the lights on, because I do not post my free content paid by the Lord Jesus Christ. I host it on my own website, not on like Webtoons or on Wattpad or Inkit. I just keep it all on my place because I like doing cover arts and I think they're pretty fun. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and that's all. See you in the next one. Peace.